The first wave of Election Day results are in, and News Channel 9 is your Election Day headquarters. I'm Don Guevara.
And I'm Faran. Let's get right to the mayoral race. We have team coverage for you tonight. News Channel 9's Stephanie Seyfert is live in the downtown at David Saucedo's watch party, and Alejandro Briones is at Dee Margo's watch party. Let's take a look at the numbers now.
Yeah, Dee Margo continues leading in the race for mayor, but still not at that 50% mark. And again, these are just the early voting numbers. These are not any of the numbers from today's race, but you can see Margo leading Saucedo and both of them leading Acosta. So the numbers are now showing Dee Margo with about 7,900 votes over David Saucedo's 3,800 votes.
Alejandro Briones is live from his watch party right now. Alejandro, he's probably very, very excited at this point right now. What can you tell us?
Yeah, well, Dee Margo does continue leading in the race for mayor, and we spoke with him earlier about how he didn't get over the 50% mark from the early votes. He says he was expecting to get at least 50, if not more, but he says that he's feeling positive that today's voting numbers will put him above that mark in order to avoid going into a runoff election. Now, here's a quick background on Dee Margo. He has lived in El Paso for 40 years, and he says the city has given him roots. Margo is a businessman who in 2010 was elected to the Texas House of Representatives. He's also served on EPISD Board of Managers. He believes his experience at the state and local level makes him the most qualified to win this election.
I did 2 years at EPISD and the Board of Managers. I think I've shown my commitment to this community. I just care about it.
Margo also says it's going to take someone who can provide significant financial oversight because the city cannot tolerate any more tax increases. Now, it is still too early to know if we're going to have a winner tonight. We're still waiting for more results to come in. But as of now, early voting shows that Dee Margo is in the lead, but still not at that 50% mark. We will continue monitoring those numbers, and we'll talk to Dee Margo again a little while later. Reporting live in downtown El Paso, Alejandra Briones, News Channel 9.
All right, Alejandro, thank you. We are taking a closer look at our mayoral candidates, what their strengths, what their weaknesses are, according to them.
News Channel 9's Stephanie Seyfert. She is live from David Saucedo's watch party in central El Paso. Is Stephanie possibly looking at a runoff here?
That's right, but Saucedo says he is still staying optimistic. He says he is not the politician, but rather the anti-establishment candidate, and he feels that even though people might think his age is a weakness, he feels it's quite the opposite. Saucedo graduated from Cathedral High and has a business degree from Notre Dame. His family started Saucedo Law Company 100 years ago, and he prides himself on being Hispanic, which he believes is important to the community. He wants the community to feel they have something in common with whoever represents them in City Hall.
I have a young family. I have a 2-year-old. I have an 8-month-old. I pay a mortgage just like everybody else. I feel what the typical El Pasoan feels.
So now he says, having graduated college not too long ago, he also understands the struggle of student loans and debt, which is why he feels he can identify with most El Pasoans. Now, with that business background, he says that he is very data-driven and has looked into the city's finances and where they can allocate funds. Take a look behind me, his watch party right here celebrating. They're still very optimistic, so we'll keep you in the loop with whatever numbers come around next. For now, reporting live in central El Paso, Estefania Seyfert for News Channel 9.
All right, Steph, thank you. In the race for El Paso City Mayor, 8 candidates are vying for that seat, which is left vacant by Oscar Leeser, who did not seek re-election. Let's go over those 8 candidates. Dee Margo, who is in the lead, Emma Acosta, David Saucedo, Jaime Perez, Charlie Stapler, Jorge Artelejo, Alicia Morales, and Willie Cager.
And with that, we now welcome our political analysts. We are joined by Dr. Richard Pineda, director of the Sam Donaldson Center for Communication Studies at UTEP. Then we also have Ileana Holguin, who is the chair of the El Paso Democratic Party, and El Paso political blogger Jaime Abetia. Thank you guys so much for coming. We had a great time during our 7 o'clock hour. Now here at 8 o'clock, Don, you had a question that you wanted to ask as far as the mayoral of what we just heard from David Saucedo.
Yeah, so we heard from the Saucedo camp. I'm going to check to see if there are some new numbers, but I did want to ask this question. He kept talking about the anti-establishment candidate. Do you think anyone was buying that he is?
I don't buy much of what David Saucedo says. If you look at his responses to some of the stories about the controversy with the Boys and Girls Club, that's a constant revolving door constantly changing his answer. So I don't really buy a lot of what he says, but I don't believe the electorate bought him as an anti-establishment candidate. But that's a very clear sign of what he's going to be going forward in the runoff, and I expect he'll try to run on being Latino, and he will try to run on being anti-establishment.
Which in a town full of Latinos isn't working. We have some numbers here. DeMargo, 47.02% to David Salcedo's 23.17%. Again, El Paso, Democratic town, El Paso, a Hispanic town, but clearly the anti-establishment campaign message, Ileana, didn't seem to work.
Yeah, no, I think, there's been a lot of problems on City Council. No one can dispute that. And I think certainly that hurt a lot of the candidates who are currently serving. We have Representative Acosta, obviously what we're seeing with Representative Limon and Representative Tolbert. So that's something that hurt. Going back to the comment about David Salcedo priding himself on being the anti-establishment candidate, we all know he's a Republican, even though he likes to deny it. And to me, when I hear that, that rings straight from the Trump campaign. And I think that's what people need to be really scared about, what kind of positions he's going to take, how he's going to stand up for our community if he ends up coming out ahead in front of DeMargo.
And one of the things that he said in there was, Richard, he's talked about his age. He thinks that that's probably one of the factors as to why he is behind DeMargo right now. Is it necessarily age, or could it be the financial problems that he's kind of tied to as far as the Boys and Girls Club that we've all reported on?
Well, I think there's a combination of things. I mean, so we're talking about Salcedo as a candidate, but I think not talking about Mr. Margo in this particular case is significant. So Margo has not run from the fact that he is a Republican, that ran for the legislature and won as a Republican. I think that makes a big difference. I think that he's been honest, at least on that particular question about partisan identity, and I think that plays well, as does his experience with the school board. So I think that was an equalizer that's really hard to counteract. I think the age question may have in a town like El Paso may have some cultural baggage in terms of being, perceived as too young to have the experience to be mayor. But I would have to agree with Ileana and with Jaime that I think that this is not necessarily about large sort of esoteric issues. I think this is about serious, on the ground kinds of issues, and I think that made a huge difference. I mean, this is a difference of 4,000 votes at this point, which means that if you're starting to strategize from Salcedo's campaign, you're going to really have to work hard, and you're going to have to find voters that are willing to come back out one more time. In this next race, in the runoff race, you'll also have the District 8 City Council seat. So the West Side, as far as the early voting numbers, really did favor Margo. I think it's going to be very, very hard for Salcedo to put a path together to try to get back that 4,000 plus votes.
Well, I wanted to go over just some of the numbers here. We are reporting that, let's see here, we have about 9 of the 189 precincts are in. The numbers haven't jumped too much. Much here, but I want to get to the District 7, the Limon race, and I have those numbers right here, folks. So right now, Henry Rivera continues to lead Lily Limon 60% to Lily Limon's 39%. So those numbers haven't moved too much since the last time that we've checked, but this is one of the big surprises in this election so far.
And it's one of those things is with District 7, the District 7 city rep race, it covers most of East El Paso and the Lower Valley. One of those things that was very, I want to say a little bit shocking for many was that a lot of people really thought that Lily Limon had this in the bag. Jaime, your thoughts as far as Henry Rivera now kind of walking away with this?
Yeah, one of the critiques I guess I can lay out for the Limon camp is that I did not see the field operations there. And yes, she's got a lot hanging over her head, but if you've got a strong field operation, particularly in the valley, you can overcome a lot of this. I saw a lot of door tags, and I knew of a lot of block walking going on in the Lower Valley portion of District 7, but it was one-sided. It was just Henry Rivera, and that was it. I didn't see, and plus he had a pretty strong influx of cash because he must have won the lottery spending all that money he spent on signs, because they were everywhere. They were in District 6, they were in District 3, they were in District 7. I mean, they may be some in Chaparral for all we know. I mean, they were everywhere.
Well, let's talk about voter turnout. We're seeing 4.2% of registered voters actually voted. That is a tremendously low number. So essentially what we have here, the candidates, their friends, a very small circle of inner circle politics here in El Paso. What do you make of that?
It's really, really sad and disappointing to me, especially coming off of the November election where we broke almost every single voting record that we had here in El Paso. It's really shocking to me. I mean, I really thought that because of what happened in November, we were going to see more people want to get involved, the way we've seen happen in other parts of the country. And I'm shocked. I'm flabbergasted. I don't know what to make of it.
And as far as going into a mayoral runoff, most likely is what we're seeing right now, at least with the numbers that we have. Do we think that we're going to have the same numbers, if not less, in a runoff election?
So I think that the only factor that I think could have a positive impact on voter turnout in a runoff is the number of people that come out for the District 8 race, because I think that there will be some interest in trying to figure out who comes in. There's not an incumbent. Obviously, that's the seat that Courtney Nyland vacated. So you've got a slate of candidates that are coming in. The west side, the neighborhood that I live in the Upper Valley, was very active as Margot territory. I mean, the signs were everywhere. Those were the door hangers that I got. So I think that you'll see some turnout there, but if you don't have races where there are runoffs, and that would be in some of these other seats like 7, what that means is that you're going to have to craft a very specific strategy to get people out. And I think it's going to be incredibly difficult. Once you get to that June race, kids are starting to get out of school, parents are less engaged in terms of what's going on. You've got a bunch of other factors that start to play in. All of those things make it really challenging, and I think that it's not as if between now and the runoff there's going to be a surge of excitement about any of these races, right? If anything else, we're going to look at the bottom end of the bell curve that people have sort of said, I've done what I needed to do. I'm just tired of voting in these races. What I think you will see, and what I think will be interesting for voters to watch, is in these runoffs, in particular the mayor's race, I think this race will get ugly very quickly. I think that it will go negative in a way that we didn't see as much going into the general election. And that might make it interesting, but I think the risk for both candidates doing something like that is that you'll ostracize even more voters going into the runoff.
How do you see it getting worse? You're talking it's going to get uglier. It's already been pretty ugly.
Well, I think that there's a couple of factors. I mean, the Salcedo team has to deal with, as Jaime pointed out, a number of factors that are hovering over him. The experience in the Boys and Girls Club and the inability to find a financial solution to that particular issue. I think, as Ileana pointed out, Salcedo has run consistently from the label of being a Republican. I don't think that that's been the case for Margot, but I do think that if you're talking about partisan identity as a value and talking about standing up for what you believe, I think it hurts to run away from your partisan identity, even if you're a Republican in a Democratic town. I think that makes it much, much harder to make a compelling case, certainly not to try to use this line of rhetoric that you're anti-establishment. In this case, that hurts you even more from trying to make that argument.
And I would agree with that. I mean, I saw Representative Margot go to Democratic Party function events. I was expecting to see him booed and heckled and hissed. And he was treated, very respectfully, surprisingly so at some of the events because they're known for being pretty wild. But I think a lot of people gave him credit for showing up. Salcedo didn't do that. So it's kind of hard for him to say he's the anti-establishment guy while he doesn't even try to court some of those voters. And I think now he's going to try to make a big, sharp left turn and to try to do that. But I think his economic problem is bigger. I think his economic problem is campaign financing at this point, because Representative Margot has all the dough, and at this point he's at a big disadvantage to Representative Margot in terms of cash. Where Salcedo does have somewhat of a prayer is field. When you're going to have a runoff election and it's going to be a low turnout, it's whoever has the best ability to get voters out to the polls. And Margot's consultants are not very good at field. It's not what they're great at. They're great at mail, they're great at messaging, but they're not really good at field. And so if there is a path to victory in a runoff election for Salcedo, it's going to be in the field.
And
but you need money to do that.
And you're talking about, 47% to 23% right now. As a former campaign manager, what would David Salcedo have to do in order to walk away with this?
He's got to concentrate on the field, and he has to be completely focused on field, on knocking on doors. He has to have calluses on those knuckles and be about my shade of brown by the the time he's done from being out there in the sun so much. That's his only avenue. It's not impossible. I mean, there's often times where you'll have a candidate who is either an incumbent or someone with bigger name ID who is ahead in the first part of the election, but in the runoff they ultimately lose. You saw that with Mayor Cook when he first won. Commissioner Perez beat Chente Quintanilla. And that's another example of how you had somebody who had a lot of name ID but ultimately lost to Superior Field Program.
Let's go over some of the numbers because we are getting more precincts that are reporting, starting with the race for mayor. 9 of the 171 precincts reported. DeMargo, 47% to David Salcedo's 23%. In the race for District 2, we have Alessandra Anello, who's at 34%, to Jim Tolbert's 31%. Again, he is the incumbent who took over this seat after an ethics investigation. Now he's trying to keep his seat after his ethics investigation. We'll talk about that in just a bit. Let's move over to District 3, though, where we have Cassandra Hernandez at 39% to Jaime Barclay's 29%. To District 4, we have Sam Morgan at 43% to Shane Haggerty. So a lot of these are going to go into a runoff. To District 7, this was a surprise of the night for I think a lot of people. Lily Limon, who is the incumbent there, she's at 39%, trailing her opponent, Henry Rivera, who wasn't doing too well in our forums by accounts of a lot of people who are watching. But right now, he is destroying this race right now. Let's go now to the District 2 race, which covers Central El Paso. We have News Channel 9's Patrick Hayes, who's covering that one for us. Patrick, what do you have?
Yeah, right now I'm in Central El Paso, where there are 5 candidates challenging Jim Tolbert for his seat on City Council. And earlier today, I talked to 3 of the candidates, including 2 challengers, Alexandra Anello and Judd Burgess. Now, they both told me that people are unhappy with Tolbert and it's time for a change. They also talked about doing more to get people out in local elections. Now, if elected, they plan on improving communication between residents and the City Council.
I really believe that I am the candidate with the most experience with budgets and communication, and I think communication is what's really lacking. You know, as I've said many times, our city government has a we know best attitude, and it's time to change that.
I've been here, first of all, for 47 years, so I know this area, and I've been in El Paso for 51 years. I've raised my kids here through public schools. I understand the city, and El Paso is such a unique city. There's really no other city in America like El Paso.
Now, I did reach out to the other candidates running. That includes Dolores Baca, Raul Valdez, and Alexander Burnside, but I have heard back. Now, back out here live, I'm standing with Miss Anello, who's actually leading the race by 50 votes or so right now. And what are your thoughts right now? You're obviously the winner, not the winner, but you're facing an incumbent. You know, what's going through your mind?
Well, you know, like you said, I think the citizens are really unhappy with their current representation, and I want to thank everyone that came out to vote. You know, everyone that I met. It's been a great experience, and I'm really excited to talk more with those people and be a voice for the community, which is something we don't have right now.
Right now, it looks like you're going to be in a runoff. What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. I mean, it's very exciting. Like I said, this has been a really amazing experience, and I look forward to, you know, campaigning some more.
What's going through your mind as you know, you're watching these numbers roll in? Obviously, only a handful of precincts are reporting, but what are your thoughts?
I mean, again, it's just exciting. It's really exciting, and again, I just want to thank everybody. You know, I've met a lot of people in this process. I've spoken with a lot of people, and I'm so appreciative of the time they also took to speak with me and to go out there and vote.
If elected, what do you hope to accomplish?
You know, I want to look at our infrastructure. You know, everybody is talking about streets, but I think getting some accountability back to our city is really important. You know, as citizens, we give up a lot of tax money, you know, whether it's for streets or quality of life, and we have absolutely no accountability to our city representatives or the city staff, and I would like to see that happen.
Okay, well, we'll be out here covering the District 2 race all night. Later on tonight, we'll also reach out to Jim Tolbert to see what his thoughts are on the current results. Reporting live in Central El Paso, Patrick Hayes, News Channel 9.
All right, Patrick, thank you. Let's move on to another race. This is the race for District 4. We have News Channel 9's Chorus Nylander, who has a live interview with the candidate Sam Morgan. Chorus.
Yeah, well, we're with Sam Morgan right now. We're at his watch party part perhaps dance party. It's a pretty great party out here right now. A lot of fun, and with good reason. You're pulling pretty good ahead in your race at this point. First off, how do you feel about that?
I feel fantastic about it. You know, there are a lot of hard work went into this campaign, and the folks that worked hard for us are out here sharing it with us, and it's going to get a little better as the night goes, as those numbers come in.
So what's the most meaningful part of all this? Is it seeing all these people come together, kind of investing in you, being so proud of you tonight?
One of the most meaningful part for me is that our community came together, and they spoke very loudly, as the numbers actually show you. And, you know, our community is a very diverse community, as you can tell by looking at the people in this room. But the bottom line is our community coming together to support something that's good for the community, and that's right now seems like it's Sam Morgan.
And so there are many issues, I'm sure, ahead that they're hoping you can help take care of. What are the main issues going in there that you want to tackle if you pull ahead tonight?
When we pull ahead tonight, we want to handle the issues that we've identified during our campaigns. You know, quality of life. You know, better roads. Figuring out what we're going to do with Coyne Stadium. Figuring out just exactly what it is that has not been happening or has been happening within the city that has left our community behind. Okay, we pay taxes, and our quality of life and our economic development just seems to be lagging behind the rest of the community. And we want to make sure we get in there and figure out exactly why, so we can go ahead and come up with a solution to fix it.
So the current sitting council member Carl Robinson, his term's up. He'll be out. Do you feel what do you feel you can do differently that he may not have been able to do well in office?
Well, the thing that I think Mr. Robinson did a great job. He did what he could do with the time that he had. But the bottom line is this: our community needs to have someone that has a strong presence and a strong voice to stand up and fight for the Northeast, fight for what is the things that we need in our community. You know, we need better roads, we need better streets, we need better parks, we need a better quality of life out here in the Northeast. And I believe I'm that person. I believe my voice is strong enough and my presence is strong enough to where I can impact or affect a change.
And I know you have a military background. I see plenty of veterans here today I was talking with that they seem so proud of you and feel so confident in your abilities to lead. How does that make you feel?
Oh, I'm very humbled. You know, this is a very humbling moment to actually see an entire community, you know, coalesce around one person because they believe that that person is the person that can actually help their community. So it's very humbling.
And so wrapping up here, your counterpart Shane Haggerty's in pulling at second place at this point. May very well be a runoff. Anything you'd like to say to him? It has been a good campaign there with him.
Yeah, he's a very decent man, and I believe that he's run a very, very strong campaign, and I wish him the best of luck. But right now, the night is about us being able to watch these numbers come in and see how we're going to fare in the end. I really believe that we're going to be able to pull our 51%, and we're looking forward to that.
Cool. Thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you,
Pleasure
sir.
talking with you. We're out here live in Northeast El Paso. We're keeping our close eye on these numbers. He's still in the lead at this point. Back to you in the studio, Corson.
All right, Course, thank you. And with just one of the precincts reporting, Sam Morgan does enjoy a pretty nice lead, 43% over Shane Haggerty's 35%. Let's go back, though, to the race for District 2. And it's Jim Tolbert versus, right now, Alexandra Anello. She had a very good debate here in our forum, but a lot of questions that people were asking, Jaime, you may have been one of them, was this woman is from out of town. Essentially, she's, as they say in political terms, a carpetbagger, and she's doing so well against this incumbent who, of course, is under investigation for an ethics violation.
Right. This is indicative of the fact that Representative Tolbert has probably taken the biggest political nosedive that I can recall in recent history locally. He went from riding in on a wave of enthusiasm and support for stronger ethical government in a district that had some challenges with that, and within a very short period of time has been a victim of self-inflicted wounds, going back to Stakegate and Bad Word Gate, and now the investigation.
But when you pull out all the other candidates and just put it to those two, because it will end up being a runoff, could the votes end up going towards Tolbert when you take everyone else out?
Not when you traditionally when you have an incumbent that's in a runoff, they traditionally lose. With the exception of the district attorney Jaime Esparza, I couldn't find someone going back to I believe the 60s where that happened, and that was close.
That was very close.
So that normally does not happen. And the fact that Ms. Anello is ahead right now demonstrates just how much trouble the Tolbert campaign is in. He's been priding himself on having a good ground game and a good field program, and I believe that he has, and I think that's been his saving grace. But he's definitely in trouble at this point.
Well, I think you can extrapolate from the data. The other candidates, even though nobody has come close to the two of them, those essentially are anti-incumbent votes, which means that you have quite a few votes on the table for folks that were not voting for Jim Tolbert. So I think with a little bit of adjustment and strategy to try to reach out to those voters, you're going to have a big push. For all of the runoffs, though, one of the interesting questions is fundraising. So hypothetically, a campaign will spend down to 98% of their budget with the hopes that they'll be able to win outright. Runoffs make it more challenging because you've got to go back to the well. You've got to go back to all of the donors that have already given you money. You've got to try to get a new pool of donors in. So really one of the big challenges, I think Jaime pointed out the ground game, but really potentially the bigger challenge is money to be able to fund the ground game, to fund mailers, to fund advertising. And I think that's always the trickiest part of a runoff. And so to look at the mayor's race as the example, I think that Margo comes into that with a tremendous advantage. I mean, the amount of money that he still has in his war chest far outnumbers what Salcedo has got.
And let's talk about that ethics investigation that seems to be hitting Limon and Tolbert. We had the mayor and 4 other members of council, including Limon and Tolbert, who are trying to get their seats back. They're currently under investigation by the Texas Rangers for what appears to be a violation of the Texas Open Meetings Act when they had that meeting. There's a video there on a Friday when City Council was closed, and it appears to some that they were involving themselves in a rolling quorum.
And one of the things that's very important to note is when we have been uncovering this investigation with the city and these council members is we've repeatedly seen Lily Limon, Jim Tolbert, Jaime, as you kind of pointed out, taking a nosedive as far as their political success right now. Limon has already taken one, and now we could be seeing Jim Tolbert's. When you see surveillance video like this all the time in reports, especially with an ongoing investigation, I mean, how does that affect the voter?
Oh, tremendously. I mean, optics is really one of the biggest parts of any kind of political process. And so whenever anything comes into question in terms of whether people are being honest with funds or if they're honest with their voters, I think that you see those kinds of issues. I think the second part of the optics problem is not having a good argument to answer what's going on. So really, fundamentally, if you could stand up and say, look, this is what happened, this is why this is not a point of concern, and I can assure you that this isn't going to happen again, I think candidates can move away from that. But I think, as Jaime pointed out, Tolbert came in on an ethics complaint.
Yes,
and his success as a candidate was based on that. So it puts him in a difficult position, if not a hypocrite, to be in this particular case. And that extra baggage makes it so much harder to be able to come out. I mean, not articulating some clear explanation of what happened, I think, makes it very hard.
And with this alleged rolling quorum as well, one of the things that we are seeing is a very low voter turnout. I believe the number was 4.26% of the voters. Ileana, as far as getting out the vote, we didn't really see a lot of it for this exact election. How do you guys see, as far as the Democratic Party now moving forward? Are you going to be encouraging people to go and vote out in these runoffs? Because we could essentially have 2 Republican candidates now for mayor.
So certainly we're going to keep encouraging people to be engaged in the process. We don't want people to stay home and not vote. But no, we are not going to be encouraging people to vote for 2 Republicans. We were having this discussion off camera with Jaime and all of the panelists about how undervoting makes a huge statement, and elected officials really look at that. And so no, we by no means are going to be advising Democrats to go out and vote and choose one Republican over the other, but we still want them to be involved in the process. We want them to make their voice heard, and if undervoting is the only way to do that, that's what we're going to do.
All right, folks, we are just getting started. The next batch of numbers comes out at 8:45. We're going to have another newscast, this time on News Channel 9 on TV, also on Facebook Live. So if you're out and about, if you're at a friend's house and they're not watching News Channel 9, you can watch it on Facebook Live. Then we'll be back at 10 o'clock for Facebook Live. A lot of the numbers aren't in yet. These are just very small precincts reporting, so a lot can happen in these next couple of hours. So stay with us. Join Join us at News Channel 9 at 9 o'clock at the top of the hour. We'll see you then.